folks, Cole here with the Survival of the Fittest podcast. Casey and I are really pleased to present the next string of episodes on the topic of the fight against human trafficking. This is a trigger warning for those tuning in that the discussion of CSAM, although details are spared, that is very much a part of human trafficking. The guests that we've brought on to this show are one, Tyler Schwab, who is the president and founder of Libertas International, and two, Jake Ostler, who, along with Tyler, has extensive experience and knowledge about the fight against human trafficking. This was a long interview at its core. We decided to go ahead and break this into 4 parts, not only to help you as the listener stay focused and engaged in the material, but also be able to have it be more consumable so that you can have it broken up and that you will tune in and hopefully share this. So in the beginning, we're going to talk about an overview of human trafficking. We're going to talk about intervening human trafficking, the aftercare for the victims, and then the 4th and last episode in this series will be about the prevention of human trafficking. We hope that you can have an open mind to this topic, as well as hone in your passions for how to fight against human trafficking. We appreciate your viewership.
So this will obviously be pretty long form podcast. I don't know, we might even break it into 2 or something. And I'm going to vouch for a potty break in a little bit.
Okay, I was going to ask what the protocol was.
Right now? Let's wait. I'm just going to ask this one question to kind of just circle the wagons.
We'll go
together. Well, and then we can focus on the prevention, because I've got a lot of questions about that side of things. What I didn't realize is intervention and aftercare, like the line in between that is not very, like it's very blended. When you intervene, the aftercare starts, and from what you're saying. But I do want to ask, for consistency's sake, the same question: why might aftercare be the most important part of the process?
Yeah, I think aftercare is definitely the most important part of the process, because you don't have a case without them. You don't have an arrest without them. There's like, they did the most important thing, which was survive. And if they really are, like as me and Jake said, the heroes in all this, like their voice needs to be the most important, and they need to be the ones that I think lead the movement. And like the way that we have it done at Libertas, of having them the focus of the intervention, I feel is a really good way to do it. We may change like based on how the crime evolves and the new partners that we have, but how it is now, we really like the model, because the intervention is important, but it almost comes second to the survivor and her well-being, to where we have to make sure that she's taken care of, he's taken care of, like whoever the survivor would be, so that the intervention can happen. I think some, and I've even had conversations with police officers about this, where for them the arrest is the most important thing, and I get where they're coming from, but I think, and I'm not going to say that he's wrong or she's wrong in thinking that, but I just think there's a way to do it that's more empowering for the survivor. And like these survivors like went to this court case in New York. They're only were able to do that because they received really good aftercare. They were taken care of. They were professionals now. They had healed from this abuse. They were healing from this abuse. And I think that we ourselves do a discredit to the movement when we don't put the survivors first and foremost in everything that we do, specifically on the intervention side, where in the past, like there's been organizations that have kicked down doors, sometimes illegally, caused a lot of trauma for the survivors, tricked them into falling in love with them, or however they got them out of these situations. And it wasn't a trauma-sensitive way to do an intervention. And then, like, who knows, like, what kind of aftercare they got. And so I think one of the best things that the movement has done is given a voice to survivors, including them at the table, so that they do have a say in what they do. And so often they get without intervention on part of a nonprofit, they get the short end of the stick, to where, like, I'll just brag about Libertas for a second. In the city of Medellin, where we primarily operate, in the past, when a survivor went to go report the abuse, the police would say, "Thank you, we'll get to work on this. but the survivor had no way to get home because they had no money to pay a $5 taxi to get home. They still would go home. There would be no food. They wouldn't be in school. They'd be behind 2 years, and they would ask like, well, what happens to me now? And the police would just say, sorry, like it's just we don't have anything to give you at this point. And at that point, like, then the police call them, every 3 months, and there's an update asking for more testimony.
Still very vulnerable.
Yeah, it's not focused on them. And so the way we do it now is when the survivor reports, we take them in right away. We start giving them aftercare right away. Make sure their basic needs are covered, that they're studying in school, that they're being listened to, they get medical care. I think of a survivor right now who, one of the victims of this guy Dominic I keep talking about, when she first came to us, her mom has Down syndrome, and so she lives in an incredibly vulnerable situation anyway. She wasn't studying, she had no food, and one of the people that abused her gave her an STD. And so for her, just meeting those basic needs of getting her in school, making sure she has food in the house, making sure her rent's paid, and making sure she's getting medical care and psychological care to deal with what's happened to her, resulted that she was a better witness, provide better intel against Dominic, and now Dominic is behind bars, and this girl is still getting aftercare till this day, and she'll be with us until she tells us that she's ready to be on her own. Yeah. And so I just think it's the best way to do it. I think it's the most trauma-sensitive way to do it. I think it's a way to. I know you're a Lord of the Rings fan. Are you guys Lord of the Rings fans? You guys ever seen Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, I've watched it.
Okay, so the scene always brings me to tears every time I watch it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're gonna say.
And it's just, I think it's a way that the movement needs to incorporate just the feeling of this scene. At the very end, when they return to the king, when Aragorn kisses Arwen and everyone bows to him, and the hobbits bow to him too, and Aragorn stops the hobbits and he's like, "Bro, you don't bow to anybody. Like, you guys are the ones that did this whole thing. Without you guys, we're still in this war. So you guys bow to no one." Aragorn bows, everybody else bows, and just these 4 hobbits who are the smallest among them, and everybody's bowing to them. I think that should encapsulate the movement, where that those 4 hobbits in the movement are the survivors. Yeah. And despite them being sometimes the smallest of us, 2 years old, 19 months old, 15 years old, that they are second to no one, and we all should be honoring them, because in the end, they really did the most important thing, which was survive what happened to them.
Yeah, I think this, to touch on a point that we made earlier, it seems like there's the difference between, if you're viewing this and you know a little bit about human trafficking, you might have a certain corporation come to mind and a certain individual come to mind, and it seems like, from what I've consumed on social media, etc., it's very numbers based. This is how many numbers have been rescued or convicted or whatever. And that might be where the emphasis is put on the act of let's stop, let's intervene and stop it. And then it seems like that's the highlight. Whereas what seems the right way to do it, the best way to do it, and the way that you're saying it's done, is the highlight is the survivor. So not only, and why aftercare might be the most important part of the process, it's not just the intel and the information, because that's what really gets the job done in preventing, more of this from happening. This meaning human trafficking, but also to think that a victim of human trafficking, you intervene and stop it, to think that, oh, well, we stopped it, you're fine now, is just a load of shit, right? Nobody was really thinking about, when I say nobody, I'm not including you all, because I know that you are, but I would say not a lot of people are thinking about, they've got what? This lady's got an STD, or, are they involved in school? Do they have the funds to live? Are they nourished or not? Do they have the setting within the family for them to grow? Like, they're young, can they develop properly? And that's the emphasis on the survivor. That's the way it seems like that should be done, and I'm happy to hear that that's the way that you're doing it. Yeah.
even like there's an aspect that I didn't touch on that's been so beneficial for my personal healing that we also invest a lot in. It's their physical healing. When we meet with them, like in their first visit, I know you'll appreciate this, is like, well, what do you like to do physically? Like, what's your thing? Are you like a gym person? Are you like a rollerblading person? What does your physical healing look like? And we give this virus that space to be like, well, I want a gym membership, or I want to be in volleyball. I want to be in rollerblade or whatever. Where we give that to them to where like we want to see them as like normal kids again. Cause like they're already, and a lot of our girls, they come from already like a stigma because their videos are online or people know they've been abused. It's like we want to give you all the tools to heal, like mentally, spiritually, but also physically. It's like, do you want to go to the gym? You want to go start squatting? You want to go see if you can bench press the bar? Well, we want to give you the space to do that. Let's pay for your gym membership. You pick something you want to do. Like we have, it's Saturday is always the day they do their physical activities, and so we make payments every Friday of transportation to go rollerblading or to go rock climbing or to go to the gym, where they go to the gym once a week. And for us, it's just like it's such an essential part of our healing. And it goes back to what you originally said of having the focus on them, to where now they're obviously they've been through something extremely traumatic, but now they're in school, they're fed, they're going to the gym. And so when the police call them of like, hey, girl, I'll use girl, generally, we'll call this person Sarah. Hey, Sarah, can you come back in? I need to talk with you about something that happened with Dominic or something. And she can say, yes, like I'll be there. She's a much better collaborator with the police because she has the access. She's well. She has access to healing. She has access to mental healing and also physical healing. And she's in less of a situation of desperation than she was before we met her.
Any thoughts on that before we break?
Well, I'm going to talk about Aftercare too before we break.
Okay.
Break's going to be a minute, so clench.
Unless you want me to do it after. No, let's keep going.
My thought's going to be really brief. Just what you were saying, I want to plug back. Our last episode, one of our last episodes, was on treating anxiety and depression, and obviously all of these victims of abuse, these survivors are going to experience some degree of both of those at some point based on what that did to their psyche, right? But on our last episode, we talked all about how physical activity and building muscle and becoming strong does so much for well-being. And my brother actually talked to me about they call it like the hope molecule or the happy molecule, something that is now being discovered as an excreted or produced by muscle tissue that actually is psychoactive and makes people happier. And they're like, there's always been this correlation with being physically active, being physically fit, being strong, and it helping with your mental health. And to hear you talking about how it sounds like a lot of these kids get gym memberships and they start working out and they start taking care of their mind and their body. And that seems like, what a way to empower, a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old who was just victimized so brutally. And then they get out of it, they start seeing a therapist, they get plugged back into the community, and then they start getting strong. And maybe that helps them feel more secure in the world, which is all they probably would ever want to feel.
Before you go, I know you're going to speak next. The last thing, you hit it right on the point, and the last thing that we think a gym membership teaches them, or like a rollerblading scholarship, whatever, it's that you are in control of your body. Like you get to decide like what you do with your body. You get to decide what lifts you do. You get to decide how strong you become. This is your body. You get to build it up, and you are 100% in control of your body. They take ownership of it.
Which might be the first time they've ever done it.
Exactly.
Oh, this is mine.
This is mine. I get to control what goes in. I get to control what comes out. I get to control which movements I do, what that looks like. And it's incredibly empowering for them, because for a lot of these, just like you said, it's the first time that they've realized that this body is mine, and I get to do with it what I please. Nobody else has ownership over my body. And so like a gym membership, I would not have made that connection unless you actually sit down and listen to a survivor. But I had a survivor about 2.5 years, and we started this program about 2.5 years ago, that told us that of like at the gym, she'd been going to the gym for 3 months. We bought her some protein as like a Christmas gift. She put on 15 pounds of muscle. She's like this little tiny thing, and now she's getting big. And she was like, I feel like I, for the first time, am in control of something that is mine. And at that point, we were like, we have to incorporate this with everybody that comes in.
All right, Jake.
Okay. So I will say I do think aftercare is the most important piece. Like when you ask that question, like I absolutely do. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but like we look at, let's say you look at the world with abuse, right? We don't even have a society that I've ever found that's free of sexual abuse. Like that doesn't even exist anywhere on the planet that I've ever found, whether it's Provo, whether it's Bangkok, whether it's Dubai, whether it's anywhere on the planet. Like, and so to say like, we're not going to do aftercare until we solve this problem intervention wise. That's where we want to put all of our resources. Like, I'm glad that there's people that their resources are intervention. I'm glad that there's people that their resources are prevention. And I'm glad that there's people that their resources are aftercare. And I'm glad that they all work together. But like, for me, I like, regardless of what classes I go teach, regardless of what brothel I go close, like whatever that looks like in the movement, there will be somebody who needs help to recover from what they went through, regardless. If trafficking stopped today, people would still need healing services for the rest of their life, right? Like, so at minimum, if you've got someone who was trafficked at birth, like you've got 60, 70, 80 years of healing that occurs. And you look at it and like, you look at like, even like, I say even, sexual abuse is terrible. If you get raped once, date rape, any of that occurs, like you're healing from that for a long time, potentially the rest of your life. Now take someone who was raped 1,000 times. Take someone who was their earliest memories of their life rape.
And they would be their earliest memories.
And the physical toll that takes, whether it's STDs, STIs, AIDS, whether it's tearing, bruising, untreated medical, scarring from being beaten or being bound, malnutrition, like all this stuff that occurs. And
Drugs in their system.
Yeah. So many, like, and you look at that and you go, okay, like, that's a ton of resources to help one person heal from that and live with the consequences of that forever, right? Like, and so like for me, like that's where I want to invest my time. It's where I want to invest my resources. And we know, you can read studies. I think the lowest studies I've seen of stats of like, if aftercare doesn't occur, over 70% of people will be re-trafficked. Most studies I've read are 80, mid 90 percentile. Like if you take a woman or a man in Utah or anywhere in the US and they've been homeless, and then you remove them from a brothel system and they're homeless again, how many hours do you think it takes in the US for a trafficker to reapproach them? It's an hour count. It's about 24 to 48 hours. So like now you take anyone in America, you put them homeless, that's the amount of time it takes for a trafficker to make initial contact, okay? So like part of aftercare is helping people get housing, getting them off the street, because that's like, I've used the term vulnerabilities. The more vulnerabilities someone has, the easier it will be for a trafficker to exploit them. Someone who doesn't know where their next meal is coming from, who's living on the street, who doesn't have, like, who's not clean from drugs, like that's a much easier person to exploit than someone with a full-time job, a house, a family who trusts law enforcement, who will make a call, right?
Yeah.
And that being said, there's people with all the stuff I just mentioned that still get trafficked. That still occurs. Trafficking occurs regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of immigration status, like that occurs. But if you have someone who's in the country who's here illegally, and if a trafficker approaches them and says, hey, if you report what I do to you, like they're gonna deport you anyway because you're here illegally, even though in reality, if someone who's trafficked and is here illegally, if they go report it, they actually qualify for a visa. It's called a T visa. And it's specifically for people who are trafficked here. They don't know that. So like a trafficker, if they go and tell them that, that's a power dynamic that they can do easily. No, like people who are living in and out off the street, like you drive through downtown Salt Lake and you see women who are homeless and you look at it and you go, oh, prostitutes. Like, that's some of our most trafficked population here in the state, is women who are living on the streets who are recruited by fake boyfriends. Like, and so like, I look at that and I'm like, okay, even if I go and get this guy arrested, if these populations are still this vulnerable and people can go and approach and do all this, like, that's still where I would want to invest my time. And so I also look at it and I'm like, okay, healing, you've got there's so much stuff that people have to heal from. Whether they go through and I want to emphasize, whether they go through the court process or not, like, we want to give the same healing resources. Like, they're not contingent. It's not like, oh, like, you reported, so you get therapy and housing and medical, and you didn't, so like, you just get therapy. Like, and there's a lot of people that report and their trafficker doesn't ever get anything. Like, I have a lot of clients here in the States that the majority of clients I've seen therapeutically, their traffickers are free. Their abusers are free, and they made reports. Like, and that's it. And so like, with that, with aftercare, with healing, like even just sexual abuse here in Utah, like, I've seen studies that say our stats for sexual abuse for children in Utah is 1 in 5 before they hit 18. Like, and then think about how many people you know, right? Like, so I look at aftercare and I look at it like, okay, like, yes, prevention is important and intervention is important. But like, if we're not helping people that this already occurred with, for a global problem that we can't even get rid of in a single city, like, if we're like, hey, we got to focus on getting rid of it everywhere before we can focus on helping people heal. Like, you look at that and like, look at the states, like you're coming out of, let's say, like, debt bondage, you're coming out of familial trafficking, you're coming out of cross-border trafficking, and you don't have a job. Let's say you were trafficked, but like, this is not uncommon, you were trafficked, but you were going to school the whole time, right? Like, so a parent can traffic kids, or people at the school can traffic a kid, or whatever that looks like, and they're in school the whole time, but like, how are you really going to focus and learn in school when after school you're going home and you're getting raped and sold, right? You're being given drugs, like, you're being physically abused, and then you go back to school, and school is your safe place. School is where I can finally relax, no one's going to hurt me here. Like, you're not like, oh, let me learn, let me practice geometry, let me do, like, you're like, oh, like, I got to survive.
Just recover.
And so then you've got to help with tutoring. You have to help people catch up in school. You have to help people like who've had failing grades catch up. You've got to help them get to college. Like a parent who traffics a kid is not going to be helping them with college. Like, and so like they might, like GEDs are incredibly like, so you've got all this stuff to do to help someone heal from all of this system that's occurred. And so like for me, I look at that and I'm like intervention's important and I'm glad people do it. Prevention's really important. I'm glad people do it. Like, and I think, and aftercare's important. I'm glad people do it. And I think they're all intertwined. And I don't want you to hear like, I don't think those two aren't important. I'm just like there's people alive today that are living with the effects of what happened and they can't find a way out. And it's like, let's figure out how to help them essentially build the life that they want to live, regardless of if they were trafficked or not. Like, we've seen clients become nurses, lawyers, law enforcement, all this other, like, and like moms have healthy relationships, mend fences, like, and do all these beautiful things with their life. And even if it's just like, you know what, I made it through another day. Like, even if that's where the bar of where they're at, like that's what I'm really passionate about aftercare and helping people with that. And that's why I got involved in this movement on the side that I'm on. Cause like, yes, we can go and we can do a lot of good in all these other areas. And if I'm going to go and provide education and I can spend $1,000 on education, or I can spend $1,000 on this person's healing that I know has actually been through this, like for me, I would like to spend it on that person who needs the help, who's been through this.
Can I share one final thought to put a pin in this? Because the whole time I'm like, how is somebody listening to this conversation going to get really engaged? And as somebody who is on the outside of this movement and this operation, I've been like, what in the world can I do, right? Because I've donated, not very much. I'm not gonna like pat myself on the back, but I've donated to Tim Tebow's foundation. I don't know if you guys are gonna, when the cameras are off, are gonna be like, yeah, or like, nah. But I've donated to Tim Tebow's, and I would really like to maybe do more that makes me feel like I'm actually engaged and involved. And I'm like, well, I got 2 kids, and if I move to Honduras to be an operative, I've never trained. And I'm like, this just seems so detached. But if I could find a way as this movement grows and progresses to be involved, especially as a medically trained individual, I could practice in my community in aftercare. Like I could absolutely do that. And for people listening, like this might be their chance to get involved, is like help the people who have survived this, who have a long road of recovery and really need support and need healthy human beings who have their best interest at heart in their community to put their arms around them and help them, thrive. So yeah, that's what I'm gathering from this conversation so far. But unless you guys have an immediate thought, we should probably do a little time out.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna turn on the AC so we can get a little cooler in here too.
Thanks for tuning in to this 4-part series. We invite you to continue to the next episode of the series, or if you're waiting for the next drop, please subscribe and hit the bell to be tied into the latest Survival of the Fittest content.